Bah, okay, I need to like become a human again.
I need to do the same. It's been 3 days of this, man.
Ah, ah,
I feel so
ah.
combative and frustrated. I don't want to be that way with you.
Because of your colds?
Yeah.
It's a good thing this isn't a combative episode. This is All Games Go to Heaven, Episode 6, Zelda, Ocarina of Time. So, hi Steve.
Hi, Mike. How's it going, buddy?
Good, good. This is the first time we're talking. We haven't been talking for the last 15 minutes or so. This is fresh. First words we're saying to each other.
The topic of conversation will be fresh. Everything that came before this is just me and you catching up because we're such good buddies.
I think it'll be fresh for some of us and sour for others. Because this
most
week...
assuredly.
Yeah, and we're talking about one of my favorite games of all time, one of my top 5 games. This week we are talking about Nintendo 64's Zelda, Ocarina of Time. One of the best games out there.
Really just going to open it like that, eh? You're going to lead like that. Okay. All right.
It's
up for debate. It's up for debate.
I'm just throwing some embers onto the fire to see if it rustles. You know, I'm seeing your reactions.
There is a fire burning deep within me that doesn't need any embers or sparks. It's lit. It's ready to go.
It's ready to go. All you need to do is say the words and tell me it's time to start burning and it's game on.
I just think about it and I get enraged.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I see the fire in your eyes.
But yeah, episode 6, the one where Mike and I are finally going to disagree.
Yeah. Well, but let's start. Just because I'm getting ready for this too, because we're so used to just praising games that I have no idea what you're going to throw at me. I'm over here as victim number 1. I feel like, and you're getting ready, pat, and like I don't hate. There's no games I truly hate. Like we're gonna journey down that road in another episode, but like we know you hate this, so I don't even know what this is going to look like.
So let me say this. I didn't come into this game being like, I effing hate this, like it's the worst. I've played Ocarina of Time before, like I think 3 times. And my opinion of it was genuinely going to be, I don't like it, it's not for me. I don't hate it. If you like it, good for you. After this playthrough for this podcast, I hate this game. I 100% hate it. And we'll no doubt get into why.
Okay, well, on a positive note, let's talk a little bit about Zelda Ocarina of Time. 1998, the game comes out as one of the first games with Nintendo 64, pretty much. So it was developed at the same time as Super Mario 64, and as well as Mario Kart 64 as like their big 3 games they wanted to kind of be launch titles. But they ended up realizing Zelda needed a little bit more love. The original structure of it was actually going to be similar to Super Mario, where you're at one castle and you're jumping through paintings. Well, Nintendo decided to say, hey, why don't we beef this thing up with the most megabytes we've ever thrown at a game. Megabytes, it's crazy to say that now.
Back then.
Yeah, and they boosted it up, and when it was released, it was technically Nintendo's biggest game in regards to process and development and how much tech went into it. Yeah.
It's a shame that they wasted so much time and effort on such a terrible game. They had 2 great ones with Mario 64 and Super Mario Kart 64, and then just this, it made a turd sandwich. You had the 2 games with the poo-poo that is Zelda in the middle.
I'm not getting into this yet. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the man, the legend, Shigeru Miyamoto, Steve?
I think most people know who he is, and even if you think you don't, you do. He's like the architect of every gamer's childhood. He made Mario, he made Donkey Kong, he made Zelda, he made Metroid or Samus. Any memorable Nintendo character that you grew up loving is because of him. And he is an industry legend. And even though I don't like this specific Zelda, one might even say I hate it. there are Zelda games that I have enjoyed, so even that character, I'll say, holds a place for me as well.
Yeah, and he does, and he did do a good job, because I remember reading online that, before he stepped on board as a director for a lot of these games and Nintendo in general, Nintendo was just pretty much like an arcader where you were playing Donkey Kong and trying to not get crushed by his barrels, or you were playing Mario trying not to get crushed by Donkey Kong's barrels before Mario was even really a thing, Mm-hmm. And then Shigeru Miyamoto comes along and says, why don't we take this to the next level? 1985 introduces Mario, 1986 introduces Zelda, and like you said, it just keeps going. Star Fox, Pikmin, I think even Animal Crossing. That's all Shigeru Miyamoto. Like,
the dude's he's unbelievable. Like, I don't know what else to say to him other than just like thank you, for all the memories. Like, yeah, you're the man. Even someone as talented as him can miss, as evidenced by Ocarina of Time.
Oh my God.
But that's okay, man. No one's perfect.
Yeah, let's just forget the fact this is on like so many thousands, not even hundreds. I can confidently say there's thousands of like reviewers' top games of all time, but it's fine.
You know better than that to use that as a justification for it being objectively good. You know better than that.
I'm not saying objectively. It's subjectively, percentage-wise, good.
Yeah, it's enjoyed. I'm not going to say it's good.
Thank God. Okay.
It's enjoyed by millions of people.
Yeah. Anyways. But before we get more into this, a little bit more on this was just the idea that this truly was like one of those games where when it came out, a lot of people were blown away because they didn't think Nintendo had the capacity to create such a cinematic experience, because this truly was, whereas Super Mario and Mario Kart 64, they were developed off, I guess, the existing language or the gaming language that existed around those franchises as is. But when it came to Zelda Ocarina of Time, shadows, light, camera angles, cinematics, I mean, this was sort of Miyamoto's sort of Kojima effect for gaming, because he tried to create sort of what Kojima did with Metal Gear Solid, where it was this like film that's not a film, that's a game. And Zelda really did that. The way shadows, lights, like me as a filmmaker, there's so many moments in this game where I'm like, wow, like look at the way the lighting is playing in the scene. Look at the camera angles they're doing, the cuts, the everything. It feels so cinematic and filmic, and I get why they called that such an important 3D step in their development.
I mean, this came out the same time as Final Fantasy VII. Which
yeah,
had
but PlayStation was already doing this.
A lot better. So
yeah.
It's not like there's no precedent for it. The thing, like, there are certain things I'm going to give Ocarina of Time credit for, 100%. Like the fact that it has a day and night cycle. That was pretty unique back then. That was pretty darn interesting. Some of those tunes, 100% bangers. Like, sorry.
Koji Kondo, that's right.
I'm not a huge fan of all of them, but anytime Saria's song comes on, you better believe it. That's a bop. I'm going along with it. Love that song. They definitely tried to take the story of Link and Ganondorf and Zelda and make it more than just bad guy go save the princess. That's ultimately what you're doing, but there is a narrative here. And, even Mario 64, it's the same thing. It's go save the princess. But that's literally it. Like, in the beginning of that game, you go up to the castle, and it's like, yep, go save the princess. Like, Bowser's at it again. And we're so used to it at that point. And because the N64 was such a, huge leap, we were just like, yep, okay. So, for Ocarina of Time, for them to, like you said, make it more cinematic, good for them. I don't think it succeeds super well from a writing point, but that's my opinion. And I have some receipts down here to back that up.
Yeah. Okay, but you are right about PlayStation. I think PlayStation put their money on that cinematic let's make a more sort of like mature looking gaming system earlier on, because Nintendo definitely catered towards the whole family friendly aspect and stuck to that for a long time. Like there is more mature titles for sure with Nintendo, but like PlayStation I think had a lot more balls in that regard earlier on. Like they went for it a lot earlier.
Well, they had a lot more RPGs, and Final Fantasy left Nintendo and started coming out on Sony platforms, because we used to be like Super Nintendo and Nintendo, all those games, and you know they're pretty, I guess, mature in their themes. But yeah, I think that's Nintendo's identity, and that's okay. You know, every one of their consoles is like the most successful one, I think, other than PlayStation 2. Which in that generation was the highest selling one. But the games are fun and they're accessible, and there's something to be said about that. You know, like I love a good narrative. So do you, but I don't need to be depressed every time I play a game. You know, or just like be put through some emotional ringer. Like sometimes you just want to have fun.
It's true. It's true. I mean, like, yeah, there's been a lot of games I recently played where I'm just like, I was like, well, there's no feel good to this at all. I'm just getting sucked down the rabbit hole of darkness. And like recently I was looking at like even Alan Wake 2, and I was like, you know, I remember how depressed I was at the end of Alan Wake 1. There's no happy ending to this whole thing. I doubt there'll be a happy ending to number 2 either.
I kind of hope there is, because I picked it up. I wouldn't mind some sort of
like
resolution. Yeah. Well, I managed to get it for like $10, so I couldn't say no. Yeah.
Yeah,
but let's talk
okay.
about your experience with this game back in the day, Mike. What, like,
yeah,
you played it, you loved it. Why? How?
Well, I mean, so first and foremost, this was a unique experience for me because I hadn't been a PlayStation kid to begin with, too. That probably is a big factor in this whole thing. Like, I didn't grow up with PlayStation. I would go over to my buddies' houses and play PlayStation. I would play Crash Bandicoot. I'd play Metal Gear Solid, and I'd get a dip a toe here and there. But my language is more the Nintendo structure. Like, I came from Super Nintendo. That's what my family had lived off of. So a lot of these titles were, you know, unique when they came out. Like, I remember playing Super Mario 64, and I was like, wow, this is a really fun game. But then suddenly I picked up Ocarina of Time, and from the opening score to the opening credits, when like everything's just this beautiful flute piece of just like this horse riding through the twilight with this knight on it, I just felt mystified. Because I mean, the whole story in a nutshell is, and it is so simple, but it's so impactful, I think, for that reason for me. It's about a boy who doesn't have a family, a human boy who's dropped off to live with fairies his whole life. But as he's getting older, he's starting to realize he's not a fairy himself. And then what ends up happening is he is introduced to this being called Navi. And Navi was also unique in their own right, because even Nintendo claimed early on, when they were trying to figure out like how is the combat going to work in this game, you know, and they wanted to figure out how to do like a Z-lock for innovating the fact that they had the Z button on the Nintendo 64 controller. They said, you know, what about if we use this fairy to sort of direct us towards wherever we're going, the fairy navigation system? Well, that becomes Navi. And then Navi becomes a character and kind of your guide through the whole game. So you have this very simple guide that kind of tells you where to go next, but doesn't overburden you with too much story. And you hear the story about this kingdom that was once unified by these goddesses. I think they're called the Devi, or the original three that created the Triforce, and how upon the creation of the universe, just kind of they divided into the three pillars, which are, I think, strength, courage, and power. And
that's what they're called. They're the goddesses of strength, courage, and power.
Yeah. So, you know, they get divided amongst the kingdom, and the universe came to be, and you have all these other beings along the way that are sort of remnants of this ancient time, and you're plunged into this kingdom that is ruled by this character that you don't even get to see. King, that is Zelda, Princess Zelda's father, that you never really hear about in any of the games, but you always hear about Princess Zelda. This sort of character that it always needs to be saved in some regards. Or in this game, in this case, flips it on its head and actually saves Link a lot of the time. So what ends up happening for me is I was mystified right away by the story about this sort of like young boy who's a knight, but it has a lot of magic to it, that is on this quest to meet Zelda because he keeps seeing her name in the dreams. He's called by the Triforce. He goes and he figures out that their destiny is pretty much interlinked, and she tells him that there's this evil character named Ganondorf, which is either Ganon or Ganondorf in all the Zeldas, and this is how the story always goes in all of them. But in this one, it was so much more unique because Ganondorf, to me, was always just this like evil entity that was always mystically in the back. But you see him early on in this one. You see him through that castle window. You peer through, and he looks right back at you. And I was just like, wow, that is a powerful depiction of Ganondorf in this game. I really like the way they depicted him in this one. It's not like this cosmic wizard floating around like you always have to fight Ganon in the other games. Which is always like some.
He looks so like clearly evil in comparison to anyone you ever see. So it's not a surprise sort of what comes next. You're just like, you look at him and you're like, whoa, okay, this guy's clearly up to something.
Yeah, but
which is fine. Like, it doesn't have to be a big mystery every time.
Yeah, but from there, you get sent on this journey to find the three stones. Yeah, the sacred stones that are unlocking the Temple of Time, which opens up the Master Sword, which is the keystone that holds back the Dimension of Time, or I forget what it's called, the Chamber of Time.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, the Chamber of Time.
It's the key to accessing the Triforce.
Yeah. And so at the end of it all, Link pulls out the sword, and next thing you know, Ganondorf slips right in there and spoils you and Zelda's big plan to try and take him down and steals part of the Triforce, And from there, I was just mystified by this dark, because then the game just gets dark. The game gets so dark. Like, there's this horrible land you're plunged into, and I had never seen somebody take me from such a beautiful, magical kingdom and just taint it like that before. Like, take this beautiful painting and just mar it by some evil intention, and then you go through this beautiful journey of trying to get back all the keystones you need to take down Ganondorf and save, quote-unquote, Princess Zelda, and sort of reforge the Triforce and spoil Ganondorf's whole plan and ruin his dimension he's created. But along the way, you're driven by these magical forces that are almost guiding you through deserts and through dark chambers at the bottom of wells and down, ships that carry you down rivers of shadow and into the heart of mountains where dragons live. And it just combines so much of what was already in my repertoire of knights and kingdoms and made it so unique, made it Japanese, which is the Japanese always make it better. They can always take a trope and they always make it so much more unique. And they really did. And I was sent on this beautiful quest with simple music. There's no voices to any of the dialogue. And it just leaves so much room for the childhood imagination to fill in the blanks. And I really filled in the blanks, riding around on my horse, killing Poes off my horseback with my bow, stumbling into the dark corners of frozen lakes and chambers where wolves are waiting in starlit caverns and stuff like that. Like, it was crazy.
If you say so. I mean, you skipped over the part where Link goes into a coma for 7 years and then wakes up as an adult.
He doesn't go into a coma for 7 years.
Yes, he does.
That's not at all what happens. No. He gets trapped in the realm of time. He gets trapped in the realm of time for 7 years. Yeah, but he's not. He's trapped in the realm of time. He's not in a coma. They never once say he got into a coma.
Not a coma, but they said you've been asleep for 7 years. Navi's even like, wake up, wake up. He's asleep for 7 years. He's not conscious throughout all that time.
No.
I just did this.
And I have the gameplay I just reviewed too. Navi only says wake up. She only says wake up when you first find him as a child. She does not say wake up. You actually plunge the moment you plunge the sword out, you go through that little gray dimension, and then you literally are back in the Temple of Time, pull it with the sword in your hand as a grown-up.
You pull the sword, Ganon shows up, and he's like, haha, I knew you, I tricked you, I knew you were going to do this.
And it goes to that gray scape,
and then you get teleported, and 7 years has passed.
Yeah, 100%. But Navi never says, wake up, wake up.
Or maybe the sage, there's one of the sages in the Temple of Time.
One of the sages guides you back to the Temple of Time, yes. Because but that's not it. To me, that's not the equivalent of a coma. That's that beautiful magical space they've created of this realm of time, the sacred realm, where the first sage, the guy with the gray beard, is kind of like, hey, bro, shit went down. You've been trapped in this dimension between time and space. Yeah, sleep, whatever you want to call it. But the rules of time don't apply anymore. You can't belittle it to just that.
How do the rules of time not apply if he ages?
Because he's literally in a dimension trapped between eras. He ages 100%, but it's like, to me, it's the equivalent of his body was almost not allowed to participate in the events of the last 7 years, but he continued to age. It's like the idea of
if his body and by extension his mind were not allowed to participate in the last 7 years of history, then he hasn't gained any experience or knowledge. He's just like a 12-year-old in a 19-year-old's body.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of what they say. But that's the whole point of when you come back as an adult. They're like, well, now you have the strength to learn all these new skills, and you do along the way, right? You travel back and forth between time and the future at different points in the game, and you do have to learn it. Like they do kind of stumble on that, like, hey, you have to still become the hero that's meant to save Hyrule, and they say that multiple times. And that's why.
Yeah, they say when he's a kid, you're not ready to be the hero yet, and the shield is too big for you, the sword is too big for you, and then okay, you age 7 years, and now you're ready to be the hero because you got your big boy pants on.
Yeah, but Sheik even says like you got a lot to learn. Like boy, you got a lot to learn.
Mike? Who changed his clothes in that 7 years, huh?
The Sage of Time, of course.
Disgusting. The poor perverted old man. Perverted old man.
In Greek history, the practice of patriarchy was a normal thing, okay? So maybe he took him as his younger lover. They had a few memories they made in the realm of time. Oh, yeah. Zelda learned a lot about, Link learned a lot about being a man from this elderly man, and they had a beautiful romance. And then he was thrust back into the world, and now he's like, yo, where you been? Wow, you learned a couple things. You go, girl,
Yeah, he sucks better than a Dyson after that 7 years.
If that's the skills you need to find happiness
to survive
in life,
the Sage of Time.
I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to judge.
Sure. I'm just saying it's not about the sage thing. I don't have to, that's just a joke. But he is just a kid in a grown man's body, and he's expected to But I don't feel like they actually do address that. They're like, yeah, you got some stuff to learn, but he's still like a stupid kid.
Isn't that one of your favorite animes? Is like the plot of that? Is that Hero Academy?
No.
Which
That's
is the
not
one
of my favorite animes either. Not by a long shot.
Anyways, I don't know.
There's one that I've watched where it's the reverse, where like an adult gets sent back to like his childhood, so he can try and solve a murder. So he has like adult brain. I still think that's weird, but not as weird as like 12-year-old and 20-year-old's body. It makes me think of like the two kids like sitting on their shoulders trying to sneak into the movie theater wearing a trench coat.
Yeah, I can see why you say that. And I guess for me, I get more so like Alphonse Eldrick, who's suddenly been gifted a badass body and does badass things with it.
But he was smart from the get-go. I mean, he just messed up.
So was Link, just because he's a little naive and he was raised by fairies.
I don't think he's smart.
I think he's smart.
I think he's a moron.
Look, he's got a great owl to guide him along the way. He's got courage. And first off, and I know, hey, that owl. Okay, so one of my big gripes with this game, the owl's dialogue is so long, and he always pops up, and he's like, I get he's teaching you things, but like the owl bugged me. The owl was.
He's not teaching you things. You start the game, you wake up because Navi gets assigned to you by the Great Deku Tree. You get summoned by the tree. You have to go find your sword and shield because that dickhead won't let you through to the tree. Man, I wanted to punch that guy in the face.
Yeah.
You go in the tree, and then you beat the monster in there. It still doesn't save the tree, and like the land of the forest falls into sort of disarray and ruin. And then the owl just shows up and he's like, "Hoot hoot, hey, what's up? Go to Hyrule." And you're like,
"Well,
who the fuck are you?"
But the developers keep using the owl, and annoyingly so, because sometimes it'll be skills you've already learned, to try and explain a skill or a device of the game that's supposed to help you navigate. Like, he explains to you in that first one that here's this open world, there are castles on the other side, and there's other things like this, so this is how you're going to walk around here. At other times, it'll be like, hey, if you go into this cave, it's going to burn you, so you should probably get the red tunic so you don't die. And it's like, cool, I already learned a lot of this stuff, bro. Like, so he was kind of annoying. The owl was my annoying bit.
And I find every single time you get an item, this is one of my biggest gripes with this game, is every single time you get an item, it's like, oh, you got this item. This is how you equip that, or you can go to this menu to equip the item, and then this is how you equip that item in that menu. You can put it to one of these buttons, and you can't fucking skip it. It's like after 2 hours, I know how to equip an item. Like I don't need you to tell me anymore. Just say, hey, you got this. Sweet. Like I'll go play with it now.
I definitely agree with you there.
The start of this game, and I'm going to argue all of young Link is the introduction. Until you become adult Link, the whole thing, it's like a 4-hour intro. Maybe it just took me that long because I wanted to bash my head against a wall every minute I was playing this, but the whole introduction of the game doesn't let you play the effing game. It's one of my biggest gripes of it's all like they just tell you everything and they don't let you play the game. And okay, fine, tell me once. Don't tell me every single time. I don't need that. You can't, like, if you can read faster than that super slow text is going, you can't skip most of the dialogue, you can't skip ahead. Like, it's just so slow and it stops you. Like, it feels like every few minutes you have to stop and read some dialogue. It's like, just let me play the game.
And my adult brain had a harder time with that. First off, it didn't really bug me. But my adult brain, if I did not have the memories attached to this, would have had a tougher time digesting that than my young brain. Because at the time, that wasn't all that different to what a lot of games were doing. Because a lot of Nintendo games had that problem, where it's like there'd be an over-explanation. Because I remember in Star Fox too, they would, like, certain planets you'd go to, they'd re-explain something they just explained on the last planet. Like, I think Nintendo had that.
I'm going to agree to disagree. Like, in Star Fox, you're always moving and flying, and it's super rare that you're stopped.
It's only at the beginning of the levels.
When the exposition is happening, like, yeah, it's at the beginning of the level. Your ship is launched and you're moving around. And then you get, like, 2 boxes of expedition and you're in there. That's fine. Like, it doesn't, it's not stopped. The gameplay hasn't stopped.
Yeah, I guess
even
to
if
me
you're
that
not shooting any, even if you're not shooting any enemies in that specific example, you're still able to interact, and you can actually skip the dialogue in Star Fox.
You know, it's crazy to me because the UI really didn't bug me that much. Like, then then I've got the opposite of this with Elden Ring, where I'm playing Elden Ring and they don't tell you anything. Like, you have to literally figure everything out yourself, and I'm like, I wouldn't mind a happy middle ground between this.
Yeah,
it's like,
100%. It's two extreme examples.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me because that UI, like, so don't get me wrong, like, the UI is definitely, like, another annoying thing, and this is crazy because these are the only annoying things you're going to hear from me. Because, like, another thing is going back and forth, especially when you get later on in the game, to continually have, like, you'll be going through a temple later on when you get to, like, the Spirit Temple in the desert, you get to the end game at Ganondorf's castle, and, like, you need to be re-equipping your C buttons with new items, like, every other door you go through. So it's like, okay, in this room I might have to use the Lens of Truth, the hammer, and the Ocarina of Time, but then I go through the next door, and then I got to replace that Lens of Truth and the hammer with the glide boots and the something else, and that got a little tedious. But I really didn't. But at the same time, I didn't mind that. Like, this is such a minor gripe for me because I also didn't mind that because it made me slow down. I wasn't always rushed through. I wasn't, like, having to hotkey everything. I was really able to stop and focus. Like, it didn't bug me. So that's why it's such a minor gripe.
That's why the water temple is so, like, notoriously shit on, is because you just, like, go in the menu, unequip the heavy boots so that you can float, and then go back in the menu, equip the heavy boots so you sink. Like, people got tired of that. What was I going to say? So the C buttons. You know how on the Switch controllers, because I'm assuming you played on Switch?
No, I used a Nintendo 64 controller.
Oh, nice. So I was using the Switch controller. On the left Joy-Con, it has the 4 arrow buttons, right? Mm-hmm. Which look like the C buttons. So, but every time I think the first hour I was playing, I kept trying to equip stuff, and it, like, wasn't working, and I would, like, accidentally equip something somehow, and I couldn't figure it out for, like, an hour. God. That it's the right stick is the C buttons. And once I realized that, it was, like, became so much easier to use. Because then you can you're just like going down for the slingshot or whatever. You just, like, flick the stick and the slingshot goes. Like, it's actually, that was a nice quality of life change from having to do the C buttons, I found.
You know, for me, I guess it was just so familiar because that's just how I learned the game. So I can't imagine having to translate that to a Switch, because I haven't played many of the emulator games on the Switch. Like, I played a couple of the Super Nintendo ones that they had on their little Super Nintendo emulator that's on the Switch, but I those have such basic controls. There was never any Z button needed for those or anything like that. So it translates pretty well to the Joy-Con controller. But the Nintendo 64 is a unique beast. Like, it's a lot more unique.
I think they did a good job. I'll say, like, once you figure out that the C buttons are the right stick, it worked pretty well. And then just from the grace of modern technology or whatever you want to call it, the fact that you can just hit the home button and go to sleep, and, like I said, I was getting so agitated playing this game. You literally only play for like 30 to 45 minutes, and then I would just put it to sleep. And then the next time I came back, you're right there, so you don't have to worry about like save points or anything like that. It's just put the Switch to sleep and then come back when you want. That helped me get through it.
Oh yeah, and I can imagine because like I think I would have I did lose my mind a couple times when I had some battles that I didn't remember how to win, that I had to figure out, because most of the time when you die against the boss and you've used all your fairies, like it warps you back to the very beginning of the chamber, right? So you got to work all your way back through and fight all those minor enemies you did, and that was annoying. I mean, back in the day, that didn't bug me that bad because that was kind of common practice. There wasn't a lot of games didn't have like a specific save point on Nintendo 64.
Yeah, you'd get
oftentimes.
Game over and you'd be back at the start of the game. So even just the start of a level was pretty gracious back then.
Yeah. So like they start you off at least at the start of the dungeon, and you're like, cool, I'm cool with this. Like at least it's only the start of the dungeon. You know what I mean? It's not all the way back. Wherever
we're a little spoiled now with the checkpoints and all the auto saving.
Yeah. And even in Ganondorf's castle, I think they were conscious of that, and that's why I appreciate it, because like you get to places like Ganondorf's castle or the Spirit Temple, and they actually design the level so there's like, as you get deeper through the dungeon, so especially Ganondorf's castle, like you can go through all these little side chambers that you have to clear to open up the main door that gets you up to Ganondorf's tower, right? And you have to fight these series of minor bosses, but at least that whole journey you have to take to clear out all the smaller chambers, like the Chamber of Forest, the Chamber of Spirit, where you're going to use all your skills you've learned from going through those dungeons in the first place. Well, by the time you're done all those, the bridge that brings you to the main tower is right at the beginning of the level. It's right there, and they just have like a shield that was originally there that you couldn't cross before it diverted you on all the other paths. So now it's like, at least when I die, I'm right back to where I was starting cave diving this whole level. You know, I'm not going all the way back. They designed it well in that sense.
Yeah, I remember like getting the hook shot back in the day, and then just standing, because Ganon's castle's floating, right?
Yeah.
And then just like trying over and over again to like hook shot onto the floating island.
And that's not at all, yeah.
No,
because not even the long one can make it.
No. But hey, these are the things you try as a kid. You're like, oh, freaking sweet! I got this like thing that'll drag me across. Like, yeah, I can shoot into the sky. It'll work.
Well, and on that note, I guess the thing that captivated me even as a kid, or even now, or what a lot of people when they talk about, you know, when are you guys going to do Ocarina of Time? Like, I had a lot of people around me when they said I was doing a gaming podcast. A lot of non-gamers were like, you know, the one game I remember from my childhood that I loved was Ocarina, and the one thing we all talk about is how, Ocarina of Time and Navi is always giving you clues as to where you go next. If you've been lingering for too long and you kind of get lost, like she'll tell you, hey, you know, that beautiful annoying voice.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, hey.
Shut up. Shut your stupid little mouth.
Okay, anyways, but even though the UI or I guess the design of the game is always telling you where to go next and what to do, the things that I loved was this was one of the first game that had like a lot of side stuff that they wouldn't explain to you. Like the mask shop. Like you go to this mask shop and you get all the masks. You don't know who to sell these to. You just wear them around as a kid and hope somebody's going to be like, yo, cool mask, bro. What? You selling that thing? Like, what you doing, man? Yo, that you looking fly there. Like, and you're just kind of hoping you're going to get it to the right mask. Like I remember how hard it was for me to sell the little horned mask. I don't know if you sold all the masks or not, but
I never bothered.
The guy with the horn mask is like you're just cruising through the forest in Soraya's forest, and one of the first little elf guys, one of the shadow beings that plays the flute in the forest, you just like roll up to him and you just like have a jam session where you're like do 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 do, and you guys are just jamming together. He's like, yo, you're cool, and then he hops down. He's like, whoa, what's with that mask, bro? That's a pretty cool mask. I'd look pretty tough with that mask. You want to sell me that mask? He rips you off. He doesn't give you as much as you sold for it, but like later on, other masks make you way more money that it balances out. But like, you know, stuff like that. A lot of people go way out of their way to do the whole giant master sword quest line, where that giant, what are they called? What are the rock guys? Ooh.
The Garudians?
Yeah, the Garudians. I don't know if you stumbled onto the big guy or not. The giant
the one
that
that's
lives
like
in the mountain?
the one that's always rolling, and he's like, stop me if you can.
No. There's a guy who's, if you go down after you get the bomb gloves and you can throw them, you go down a long, there's like one of the tunnels has like five doors you have to blow open. And at the end of it is this giant guy who's so big for his room. He's like, hey, bro, I'm a master craftsman. And he's like, I can make you the biggest sword of all time. And he makes you this giant sword that's huge. But the problem is that he's got eye irritation. So if you get the sword from him and he makes it for you, as an adult, when you go visit him, he gifts it to you. If you haven't gone on this long quest as a child to get him eye drops, the sword will always break after 5 hits. But if you got him the eye drops, you have this second sword that you can only use, because in the last battle with Ganondorf, you lose your sword. And if you can either use the hammer or you can use the master sword, or some people have to only use whatever they have at their disposal. Yeah. And so if you've done that quest, you can use the master sword in the final battle with Ganon. Just Ganon. Not Ganondorf, but with Ganon on his final evolution.
Neato burrito.
Yeah, you're like, this does nothing for me, Michael. You've swayed nothing for me.
That's interesting. That's cool. I mean, it's I'm not going to knock, or I can't knock a game from that time period for having side quests. Like, that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I'm not like a lunatic. I'm not gonna just freaking say everything about this game is a piece of shit and it's the worst. Like, no, it's not the worst game ever made.
No, but I mean, like, there's little things too. Like, for example, like, there's things that I didn't even go out of my way to do in this playthrough, like finding all the little pieces of the hearts that, like there's little clever things where it's like, I love the mechanic they use with the past and the future, because I mean, they clearly saw that one of the best performing Zelda games before this was A Link to the Past. On Super Nintendo, that dominated the market. Like, people loved that game, and the whole idea of time travel was cool as hell, and people liked it. So on this one, in this case, they really got more clever with it, where there was main quests you had to go back and forth. Like when you go to the Shadow Temple, for example, when you're an adult, you go into the windmill and you see the guy who's always playing that crazy song. And he's like, oh, bro, I've been cursed here for so long because that kid rolled up years ago and played that song and just fucked my life up for now. And I've just been trying to deal with this.
Not that kid.
Well, and you hadn't done it yet. So then you have to go and get the lens of truth as a child from the bottom of the well. So then he teaches you that song in the future. You go back in time right after that to go and you play him that song as a kid. It drains the well. You go into the bottom of the well. You do the first kind of what I call chamber 1 of the Shadow Temple as a kid. You're not an adult anymore. You have to find the lens of truth. And the lens of truth is the only thing that allows you to enter the temple as an adult later on. And so, there's that sweet tie in there. The thing with the seeds, there's the guy who sells you the little seeds you got to plant everywhere.
Yeah,
if you go
he charges
plant
you
all
more
those
every
seeds,
time you buy one. That son of a bitch.
He's a good businessman.
No, he's a shark of a businessman. I apologize for all the coughing, and I gotta do like a super timeout.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's
your. Yeah, it's just your body rejecting your arguments. But anyways,
no, this is my reaction to having played this game for 2 weeks. It made me physically ill.
I'm sick now, and I'm like, I'm feeling better than ever.
Yeah.
No, but even that guy who sells you all the peas, like, smart man, because he's always like, these are in high demand. I got to charge you like 200 a pea now. But if you plant them all, they get you to little shards of the heart or other secrets or other things like that.
Yeah, you plant them in the past, and then in the future they're grown. Yeah. I don't have any issue with that. I don't have an issue with that. It's an interesting mechanic. It's neat. Yeah. And it wasn't Link to the Past just like a light world and a dark world. I don't remember that being time travel. Pretty sure it was light
Maybe
world
it was.
And dark world.
Yeah, I think it was, but I guess to me it was just still the idea of crossing realms type deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so Steve.
Okay. So before I go super crazy on this, who tone it down, Steven. Tone it down. Where is who is this owl? Where does he come from? How does he just magically know your destiny? Because he literally just shows up when you're going to leave the forest, and he's like, "Oh, Link, I know your destiny. You should be going to the castle. Ha ha, hoot hoot hoot. Here's 20 minutes of dialogue, you little shit."
Well, there's some people online, and this is just fan theory, because I remember reading this. Some people say it's either is the Sage of Time, or it is like an owl sent by the Sage of Time, because supposedly they look alike.
The owl looks like the old man?
Yeah. Because they both have the same faces, supposedly. This is a stretch. This is just a fan theory. I don't think that. I think the owl is just a device from a magical kingdom of freaking Hyrule.
So doesn't that like bother the writer side of you of just like, here's just this magical exposition fucking animal that knows everything for some reason? Doesn't that bother you?
No, because I mean, it still plays in the whole realm of things that I love, like things like Princess Mononoke, the idea of just magical animals that guide you along the way.
There's a difference between them like guiding you and then them knowing your entire destiny.
Owls are known for wisdom. I don't know. It didn't bug me, especially as a kid. I was like, okay, I get this. This makes sense to me. Owls are
Right. You weren't as learned a writer as a child as you are now.
I think, well, okay, but I think if you're going to send anything to know your destiny, the connotation of having the Athenian owl of wisdom around is going to be
he's Athenian now, is he? He's Athenian.
No, I'm just saying in human history, the idea is the owl's always been connotated with wisdom. So to me, it's not that big of a stretch. If you got to introduce any animal to do this, personally, I think it would have been cooler if there would have been some like leak from time or something like that, where there's some spirit entity or some spirit animal or something that's like, hey, I'm actually from the future, bro, and you become a G.
Sure, and I'm not opposed to, like a spirit guide or whatever you want to call it. I just find it was a little, not overdone, but it's just, he literally knows everything. Like, you don't really have to figure anything out. The owl just tells you. It's like, yeah, go here. And then you go to that place, you do the thing, and then you leave that place, and then the owl's like, yep, go here. It's like, everything is spelled out for you.
Well, but the thing is, it's like
dialogue.
But I do have to argue this. You got the worst of the owl because the owl really does get peeled back when you're an adult. It gets peeled back a lot. The owl really is only there when you first enter a new region, like Lake Hyrule. So he's like, yo, this is what's up with this place. Nobody's going to really tell you what Lake Hyrule is, so this is what Lake Hyrule is. You're going to go to the Death Mountain.
It's Hyrule, man.
Hyrule. But it's like the
idea
the fans
are going to tear you to shreds.
Hyrule, sure. But the idea is like, you go to Death Mountain. This is what's up with Death Mountain. Hey, you're going to go in this cave. This is what's going to go in this cave. And then after that, you see the worst of that as a kid. So it's kind of also part of that intro thing, because you really don't see the owl that much when you become an adult.
Fair enough. And I guess we should explain that part of the deal of me or us doing this was that I only had to play until I got to Adult Link. So everything else, so that introductory part is super fresh for me. Everything after that, I have to maybe have bits and pieces of from when I played it, 15 years ago. Like, I don't have much memory of that. I have played it, but I don't remember much of it.
And isn't your thing that you never got past the water temple?
I never said that. What?
Oh, really?
I never said that, yeah.
I don't know why.
But that's just what everybody assumes. When you say, oh, I don't like Ocarina of Time, everyone's immediate reaction is, oh, you just probably couldn't get past the water temple. It's like, no, motherfucker, I beat the water temple. Like, I probably didn't figure it out back then. I would have looked it up on game FAQs when that was a thing. Because I didn't play it on N64. I never had an N64. I had Super Nintendo, and then eventually got a PlayStation 2 like 4 years into that thing's life cycle. So I played N64 either at a friend's house or eventually on my own through 100% legal means.
You're right. You played the Wii kickback, right? Yeah. 100%.
That's right. Yeah.
Wii. But no. So you did beat the game, right?
Probably not. I don't think I ever made it to Ganon's temple or whatever castle.
Did you make it to the Spirit Temple?
I don't remember.
The desert?
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. I know the only reason I know I beat the water temple is because everyone makes that freaking argument. Oh, you didn't beat the water temple, and I know. Well,
it's crazy for me because this game becomes its best actually at the water temple onwards for me. Like the water temple, like after this playthrough, the water temple and the Spirit Temple were my top two temples. And it goes like Water Temple, Shadow Temple, Spirit Temple, Ganon's Castle. Like, man, from that is where like my best memories of this game come from. And it's probably because I'm always remembering those 4 last temples and how good they are that I always have such fond memories of this. Because the early ones are annoying.
Well, when you become an adult, the first you go to there's the Forest Temple is the first one you do, and then isn't it the Fire Temple is next?
Yeah, Fire Temple, and Fire Temple is my least favorite.
And then after that is the Water Temple.
Yep, and then Shadow, and then Spirit.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. So it's been a long time. All of that was to say, like, I got to Adult Link, and I was so frustrated with it. That was the most of it I was going to do. And maybe that was wrong, based on what you're saying. I can admit that, because I don't have great memories of Adult Link either. I don't remember hating it. I hate the beginning part now. And let me ask you this question. Generally, the amount of time that you're going to get to sell somebody on I got to stop hitting the table when I talk. That you're going to get to sell somebody on the game is going to be that, like, opening 30 minutes to an hour. You're probably going to know by then if you're going to want to continue or not.
Yeah.
This was a few hours of serious frustration and annoyance to get through.
Look, but at the time, in retrospect, when I come back to play this game, I'm always like, how can I just skip forward to get to Adult Link? Because that's truly when the game begins, in my opinion.
But you can't. You
can't. But at the time when this came out, and this is me now thinking back to little Polish boy Michael, you're not bothered by it because it's doing something so unique. Like, there were open world RPGs, sure, on PlayStation and stuff like that, but, like, this one it really was unique. Like, 64 gave you a different vessel and a way in. Like, it wasn't like here you cross over a patch of grass like in Pokemon or Final Fantasy VII, and suddenly you're in a battle where it's 3 people lined up against each other doing attack powers. It's like, here's this real world open, you cross a threshold and you're fighting something in real time, and, like, you're getting surrounded by skeletons in real time. And, like, as a kid, you don't have the strength to always take on the things that you're getting thrown at, but you still got to figure it out. And it was terrifying. Like, I remember one of my fondest memories, which I still enjoy, is in when you go to Death Mountain as a kid, when you have to fight the lizard people, and they're throwing their little shanks at you. Like, I remember as a kid, like, fighting on these little narrow platforms where you'll drop and fall into a pit of lava and stuff. That won't kill you. That'll just burn you and burn your shield if you're equipped with your wood shield. Like, that was fun. That was exciting. That was terrifying. Like, it kept me captivated enough where I was like, oh my God, like, what's going to happen here? Let's just get these 3 stones, see what happens. Like, for me, the hardest thing to push through was always inside the whale. I hated that as a kid, and I still don't really like it as an adult, but I knew how to get through it fast.
To get the water stone in the belly of Shabu Shabu?
Yeah.
When you have to rescue the princess when she's young?
Yeah. That, to me, is the most annoying part of the game.
That level was pretty annoying. I kind of liked the boss at the end of that one. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is, when this came out, I don't even think I can defend it that way, because Mario 64 did everything you're describing better, and before Ocarina of Time came out.
You're getting into...
Go ahead.
No, go. Don't say it.
I was gonna say, you can be surrounded by enemies in that, and the controls are so freaking tight. It feels good, and you have platforming in that like it's super narrow or super precise. It never feels like you're out of control. The controls in Ocarina of Time drove me nuts. I hate the fact that you have no control over your jump. Hang on. Where's my notes on this? I just wrote terrible control. But yeah, the not being able to control your jump was one of the most frustrating things to me. Like, in the first level that you play in the Deku Tree, you have to climb up, and it seems like it's super obvious what you have to do, right? You climb all the way up, and then you jump down so you can break through the spider web, right? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. But the only way you jump is you just walk off a ledge, and then you don't really have any control over it. If you don't hit the spot, like, I'm not going to say perfectly in the middle, but pretty damn close to it, the web doesn't break. So I kept doing this over and over again, thinking, and I eventually thought I was, like, doing something wrong. So I looked it up, and it was like, no, you just got to make sure you hit it super dead center. It was like, that was so frustrating. Like, either give me control of the jump, or just make it that when you do the thing you're supposed to do, like, don't make it this, like, 4-pixel thing that you have to hit so that it goes through. Just like, no, okay, you got to the top, you know, you got your slingshot, you beat the spiders that you've seen for the first time, you got to the top, you jump off, you're through, and you can progress. Like, that was so annoying. I did have another note about the camera, the controls.
Okay.
And this isn't just a Zelda or an Ocarina of Time thing. For whatever reason, a lot of games that came out of Japan in the 90s always had inverted camera controls, and you couldn't switch it. Oh my god. It just always messes me up. It's on a mouse, I'm inverted, but on a joystick, I'm not for whatever reason. And so just having to think about that every time you want to do something it's an annoyance, but it's not unique to Zelda, so I'm not going to harp on that too much.
Yeah, and I mean, and I agree with you. Where during that era, there was a lot of like coming from tank controls, which were a lot of games were. Like I hated even in Zelda or Mario or anything how you had to like Z-lock to look forward or press up on the C-pad to look around the room, and you know when that happens. That is the frustrating bits, but you're right. That's not unique to either of the game titles I just mentioned. That was just
I'm willing to admit that, but it's just another. When you're already bothered by so many things happening in the game, it's another annoyance, you know. And I feel like on the Switch port, at least they could have given you the option to switch it. I'm surprised that they didn't, because that's so commonplace now to be able to just like toggle it to inverted or not inverted. So I'm a little surprised. Maybe it's just like an oversight, or they just didn't.
Well, but you know, the Switch port gets a lot of gripe. The Switch ports of a lot of the Nintendo games for regular Nintendo and 64 get a lot of gripe because a lot of people say they just clearly just wanted to process them and make them functional on Switch graphically, and then we're like, we don't give a shit about optimizing your gameplay experience.
You know what's a great gameplay experience on the Switch, Mike? Mario Golf 64. It
is. But that one had such... Okay, but anyways, but going back to the Zelda thing, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I guess for me, and I get why if I was struggling to get into a game, and then, you know, it is why, like, I never played Metal Gear Solid 1 when I was a kid. I tried to play it when I was older. I still haven't finished it because sometimes the frickin' controls in that game and the little gimmicks you have to do, like switch your controller when you're fighting that ghost guy, just annoying, and it pisses me off. I'm like, no matter how good this story is, I'm just getting pissed off trying to figure out this dumbass thing. You know what I mean?
I like that gimmick specifically, but that one it's rough. It's rough. It controls.
It is, and that's kind of But a lot of games are hard to translate going back. They really are. Like, you know, I wish I could have given you an Unreal 5 revamp for you to replay for this experience, you know, but I couldn't. I had to give you.
But doesn't this sort of bring us to the larger point of it doesn't hold up? Mario 64, to this day, you can pick it up and play it, and it feels great. Right away. Ocarina of Time does not.
It does for me.
Ugh.
I had no problem. The only thing, just because it bugged me to have to Z-lock to look forward, I have that same problem in Mario 64. Like, so what? The jumping thing didn't bug me so much because when you Z-lock in and you're in the battles, that's like the equivalent of the same thing that I'm playing Elden Ring and Zelda at the same time. I know that I can jump in Elden Ring. I get that I have a free jump button. But when I lock in and I'm doing PvP combat, it feels the exact same. My backflips are my backflips. My side rolls are my side rolls. Like, all those jumps are there in combat, and that's all I need them for.
Do you know what brought me no end of joy, though, playing Ocarina of Time?
Go ahead.
So you can name your character, right? At the beginning, it asks you to put in your name. So I called Link Douche. And there were so many lines of dialogue that just became so funny. And the one in particular that I wrote down. So, you know, when you're a kid, you sneak into Hyrule Castle and you meet Zelda. And she's like talking to you for a bit, and, you know, the thing with Ganon at the window happens. And she's like, oh, you know what? I've been talking all this time and I forgot to ask your name. What's your name? And then, you know, Link's just like... And then it cuts back to Zelda. She's like, oh, douche. Strange. It somehow sounds familiar. I was fucking dying, dude. So I had that. I feel like I've used one of those. Yeah, I feel like I've heard this before. It's like, oh, I bet you have. Like,
Yeah, I bet you have.
so
I mean, yeah,
at
but
least I had that going for me.
Okay, but like, so let's lean in deeper into your commentaries here, because I am gonna end this like later on when we get to that point on like positive notes and all the things I loved about this replay and everything like that. But let's keep going down your rabbit hole. Like, tell me about your experience this time besides being annoyed, and like what more? What's on the list?
What other things bothered me?
Yeah.
Oof. We've done like a pretty decent chunk of them. Some of it's nitpicky, like the constant beeping when you're low on hearts. Like that's just annoying.
That kills me. Kills me.
That's just annoying. Similar to the how it tells you how to equip an item every time. Everything that you do is like any way you're interacting with the game is basically the A button, right? It's the they even say, oh, the blue A button. Everything is that button, and every time they're like, oh, you do this by pressing the blue A button, and it'll let you do this, and it's every single time. And I don't know why they did that, like made the A button so many things. I don't think the left trigger does anything, right? And I don't remember. And B is the dodge button, isn't it?
B is your sword.
B is your sword. You're right.
B is your sword. A is your dodge button.
Only when you're locked on, though.
L and R, I don't remember what they do. It's hard. I don't remember.
R does something. I can't believe we did finish this 2 weeks ago.
I think L clears your like target lock.
Anyway, it was too many things for that one button to do. So, like, if you want to, like the boxes you can push.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to climb the box, but you hit A, and all of a sudden he grabs it and he pushes it, and you're like, oh fuck, and you gotta pull it back. And you try it's annoying. It's not the end of the world. It's annoying.
I'm with you. Yeah. And I guess for me, one thing I had to get used to again when I jumped back into this playthrough was paying attention to what word was over the A button, right? Because you have that screen in the corner, and so that was important.
You're always glancing up there, to the top right, just like, okay, is it saying the right thing? Am I going to do the right action? And I found walking on anything that was a little bit narrow to be the biggest pain in the ass, and that might have been. I'll say that might be because of the Switch. Because on the N64 controller, it's all grooved, right? It has all those little grooves. The Switch doesn't have that. So anytime I'd be trying to walk straight, like, Buddy would just be, like, doing this. Or, like, so I'd, like, fall off a rope bridge or just, like, off a cliff. And I was like, fuck, like, I just want to walk straight. Like, even in the very first village, there's that girl that's, like, on top of a platform that you can only get to by walking across the beams. It took me, like, 7 tries.
I will admit I did not have that error, because even by the time you get to Ganondorf's castle and you're doing the spirit room, it's all a bunch of invisible narrow platforms that you have to get across this giant chasm, and that's where you get the gold gloves that let you lift monoliths and stuff, like bigger things than just the rocks. And like to get to that, you not only have to traverse a narrow pathway, you have to jump off one crooked narrow pathway to another. So it's like, yeah, I did not have that struggle, like, you know what I mean? But it might have been by the fact I was using
the N64
an N64 controller.
Like, even in the belly of the whale, there's, like, one section where you have to... It's full of bats, which are fine. Like, you can lock onto them and slingshot them pretty easy. But again, like, you got to jump up, you got to climb again, and then you got to go along this narrow thing. And I was like, I just kept fucking falling off. Like I feel like I'm just pushing straight. I'm like, this motherfucker just won't go straight. It was so annoying. But,
well, I also got in the habit of Z locking every time I was at a narrow path. Like right away, I'm at the front of the path, Z, and then it just straightens me out, and then it's easier for me to use the control.
That's what I was trying to do, but again, like I don't know if it's just because I don't have that groove where it's perfectly straight. Like Buddy just never wanted to go straight. I was losing my shit, man. Too many times I was just losing my mind. There's a game I played recently like that was driving me insane for a similar reason. I just don't remember what it was, but I guess I didn't have that just because I got lucky with the controllers, right? Maybe. Well, like, okay, the first time you go to Hyrule Castle and you're sneaking in, you got to get the chicken egg.
Yeah.
Right? because that's the only way Buddy's gonna wake up is if you wake him up with
Yeah,
the chicken.
From Malin, yeah.
Yeah. So because she's waiting outside.
Yeah.
I kind of found the sneaking into the castle pretty funny because like Buddy's just there, and like if you do the thing that a lot of people do, which is the dodge roll to move fast, you just have Link going like yeah, and then like just the dude like not hearing him.
Nobody's
funny.
hearing you. No one's hearing you. Yeah.
But you go to wake up her dad because if you don't, you can't move the boxes so that you can jump into the castle. But it's like, okay, put the egg down and wait. Ooh, this is riveting gameplay. You gotta wait a whole day-night cycle for this chicken egg to hatch. Like,
I guess for me, it usually hatches. I didn't have to wait that long. I feel like by the time I snuck back into the castle, I literally rolled like 4 times and it was morning.
I got the egg from her, snuck into the castle, put the egg down, and it was just like
you know what I think my benefit was?
Until it hatched.
So you know what I think my benefit was? I got the egg from her just before nighttime, and so I only had to wait like a little bit because that day-night cycle happens pretty quick. But if you get it at the beginning of a day, then you have to wait for the next morning.
That's still shit.
I know, it is
not
shit.
a great. That's shit. That's not a good excuse.
Yeah, but that's the only time the day and night cycle really comes in because like everything else is pretty locked in more around time. Like getting Epona and learning her song and then racing the evil ranch guy. Like that happens because of time.
Long ranch.
Yeah, and that. To me, I remember the first time I got Epona, like I was way more geeked out about having a horse as a kid. That was the first game I ever got to ride like horseback and go through all this stuff. Like that
Epona.
That was a big thing as a kid. As an adult, I just kind of rushed through it.
Yeah, because when you're young Link, you're just sort of wandering around. Everything takes a while to get to. Epona was sweet. Like it's a nice mechanic and to be able to get around faster, and you can call her with the the ocarina. And then Epona was usurped by Roach from The Witcher 3, who was then usurped by Torrent from the Elden Ring as best horse.
I still have the horse from Shadows of the Colossus is my number 1.
Ooh. Damn, that's a good pick.
Because that's one of the saddest endings I've ever seen.
Yeah. But I've just been through so much with Torrent, man. Been through so much.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Roach beats Torrent still, but I'm still a youngling by comparison in the Elden Ring lands. The lands. Anyways,
Epona,
but
good horse. Epona was a good horse, and
Epona was a good horse.
I kind of laughed at the narrative quite a few times. You were talking about the goddesses, like you come out of the Deku tree, and then Mr. Owl shows up and he gives you the whole like creationism myth.
The tree does. The Deku tree does. I promise, the Deku tree does.
Okay, that's fine. Anyway, but I at one point, so they're like, okay, the goddesses of strength, courage, and whatever the other one was, they
power.
leave power. They leave their presence behind in triangles. I was like, get the fuck! You did not just say triangles. Like, come on. You could have used some sort of like thesaurus, or they left their essence behind to be combined into the Triforce to protect the realm. But it's like, no, they left the world and left behind triangles. It's like, come on.
Maybe it sounds more beautiful in Japanese.
Maybe, but that was brutal in English. And I found there, even with leaving out douche, so much of the dialogue made me laugh because it's like, this is just bad. And maybe you're right. Maybe it is the localization. Maybe you're right.
Yeah, because I don't know. Later on, I mean, it's look. The story gets better and better and better. Like, I'm not going to disagree that as a kid you're just getting spoon-fed everything, but then suddenly you arrive in the future in this desolate temple that looks like nothing's changed, but this shadow cloud temple where there's this new character you haven't seen named Sheik who starts guiding you along, which, spoiler alert, is Princess Zelda and is guiding you the whole time and is hiding from Ganondorf because she knows she has part of the Triforce on her, right? So throughout this way, Sheik kind of becomes the owl, at one point. Like, she almost replaces the owl in regards to like the things. She'll teach you the new songs to warp from temple in temple, so you don't even have to cross the lands. As soon as you get to a temple once, you can fast travel to any temple by a song, and that streamlines traveling big time. Like, arguably, Epona's kind of useless when you're an adult, besides getting to somewhere first.
How dare you?
But it's true. It's after a certain amount of time, when you get to something once, you end up fast traveling more so with the songs. If you're trying to just keep it efficient, if you're trying to explore, you're gonna need Epona. Because like, I remember some people hook shot across. Like, so when you get to the Garrido Valley, you can either hook shot across to the bridge across the way, or you can use Epona to jump across. I jump across always with Epona because it's the more badass way. But you're following this story about how these shadow-clad lands, all the people from your past end up all becoming a sage of time. Soraya becomes the sage of the forest. The Zora becomes the princess of the Zoras and the water temple sage. What's it called? Your brother, the D guy who does the dance to Soraya's song, becomes the fire temple guy. They all have something. Even what's her face, Impa, Zelda's guardian, becomes the shadow sage. And
Makes
all
sense.
along the way, all along the way, you're learning more and more about the story about how Ganondorf, the Garridos, I don't remember the name of his people, but let's call them the Garridos, for lack of a better word. Like, they are all yeah, but the Garridos, whatever. Let's just call them that for now. I'm going to get massacred anyways for Hyrule. So
Hero for hero.
yeah, I know. That's what I mean. So, anyways, all this to say is you get down eventually to the Spirit Temple. You cross this beautiful desert where you're guided by a ghost, which is one of my favorite moments of the whole game, is traversing this desert where you can't see anything, where you just have these broken pieces of caravans lost that are guiding you across, and then you have to literally follow a ghost using the magic lens of truth to this beautiful colossus in the middle of the desert, which is like their point of worship. And they're a tribe of only women. And the problem is that only one man is born to them every 100 years or something like that. And this one man was Ganondorf. And Ganondorf decided to seize the power of that and made a deal with two witches to sort of claim unlimited power. And he becomes more and more evil and reckless to the point where he eventually convinces the king that he wants to, that he can be like a trusted knight and he can serve him, but ends up doing that just so he can discover where the origins of the Triforce are. And along the way, he slips into the Chamber of Time, and although he only gets one aspect of the Triforce, which is power, I'm pretty sure, he ends up using that and tainting the kingdom by what he found in the little bit of the Chamber of Time he could enter. And that corrupts everything, and that's a trope that's been done, like you said, versus the shadow and the light in the dark realm in Link to the Past. They do it with the calamity in Breath of the Wild. And I don't know, to me, this was just like the best iteration of that narrative. Like, I don't like Breath of the Wild. Like, there's a lot of things I don't like about Breath of the Wild. Like, I don't mind it, but it's not, it doesn't, I lose, because one of the big things I like about Zelda is the whole medieval aspect of it. Putting it as this like tribal narrative just kind of like made it like this open sandbox you can play in, cool. But the things I didn't like about Breath of the Wild, like your weapons get destroyed, there is a lot less people telling you what to do. I don't know, it lost the magic of like a Knight's Tale to me. And this one kept preserve that Knight's Tale. Like, even when you like, there's some quintessential moments I'm just going to rave about here for a second. Like, for me, when you go to the Forest Temple for the first time, going to the Forest Temple after all you've done is the three temples where you get the stones, like, it's darker, it's more mature, the battles are more intense, you're fighting like wolves and ghosts and things that are a lot leveled up, you have shadows crawling down from the wall in twisted hallways that can scoop you up and kill you in a second.
Even before that, like, you spend your time as a young Link, like you said, everything is like bright and colorful, and then you get the stones, you go into your sleep coma. I'm just saying that to piss you off, and then you come back as the adult. As soon as you step out of the temple, like, you're in Hyrule, you were just there, like, not 5 minutes ago in like probably gameplay time. It was a bristling town. People were, playing and full of life, and there's a festival going on, and then you come out, everything is destroyed. there's these shambling zombies everywhere. Like immediately, it's way worse. Like, in those 7 years, like it has gone real bad. It has gone very bad, and they did a good job with that. Like you come out, and you're just like, holy, what the has happened? While you've been in a coma.
And yeah, while you've been in a coma, but and they continue on with it well, because it is like you walk out right away, and where the one guard watching all the pots was now is this like this shadowy merchant that's like, I trade ghost souls. Like, okay, sweet touch. You know, you go to cross the bridge that only opens during the day. No, the bridge is completely destroyed, torn apart by a freaking giant or something like that. And then you stumble out, and it's like, and just it's dark everywhere. Zora's domain is frozen. The Death Mountain is completely desolate. Like, all the people have been robbed and taken by a dragon that's trying to feast on them. The Forest Temple, everyone's hiding because it's just your old home is contaminated by creatures. Like everything. The Shadow Temple, I mean, when you first walk into Kokorika Village, which is one of the last places that kind of endures as like a normal place, when you go to travel to the Shadow Temple, the town is on fire. It is actually burning to the ground. And Impa shows up and is like, yo, bro, like, Sheik shows up and is like, yo, shit got real. There's a darkness that lives at the bottom of the well, and it's been freed, and it's just been terrorizing this region and stuff like that. You know, the Gravedigger is one of the only people that survived. Like, everything gets darker. Everything gets darker, man. I love it.
Yeah, I preferred the darker, ruined civilization, because everyone in Happy Times, I wanted to smack them across the face. They all look so stupid. Everyone looks like a total goof when you're like, I hated
but
that.
Maybe you should have pushed through to all the grown-up temples, you know?
Not this time.
Not this time. There won't be a time.
No, there's never going to be a time where I touch that game again. The only 3 characters I like, and none of them are Link, is I think Sheik looks badass, which again is grown-up Zelda. The king of the rock people, I think his name is Darunia. Darunia. It's like, you meet him, and he's the only one of them that's like buff, and he's got the spiky hair. All the other people in his kingdom, they're just like, you know, tubby and slow and rolling around, like low energy. And you meet him and you play him a song, and he's just like, oh hell yeah, like this is the best. And okay, you can go into the place to get the stone. And then when you come out, Buddy like jumps off the mountain and fucking elbow drops you because he's so happy to see you and that you rescued the cave. The guy's hilarious. Love him. He's great. So that guy, Ganondorf, because he looks badass, and Sheik. But Ganondorf, great. They did a great job with him as a villain. They always have.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to think of who else I would add to that list myself. I do enjoy...
Sorry.
I was going to say...
Go ahead. No, go.
I was going to say, the only other person I really enjoy beyond those 3 are... I do like Impa, and I do like the what's it called? The Poe Merchant, and I like Soraya. Like, those are all characters I enjoy quite a lot.
So do you remember what happens when Link leaves the forest the first time?
Yeah.
So Saria's on the bridge, and then she gives him her ocarina, and then Link takes it, and he just slowly backs away with like a scared look on his face and runs off. That was so funny. That was great.
Bye. You're not even going to wave goodbye? No.
And he's just
I'm
like...
going to dip. Yeah, I'm going to dip. I'm out of here.
And then you can call her, or not call her, but when you play her song on the ocarina, you can talk to her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she gives you advice or whatever you have to do next?
Yeah. And so it's one of the first things I did when I became adult Link is, play Saria's song, just because it's the best song in the game. And then she's just like, oh, Link, you're back. Like, all right, come meet me at the Forest Temple. So, this dude's been gone for 7 years. And you're so casual about it. Like, I knew you'd be there. Okay. Let's meet me at the temple.
And then meanwhile, if it had been the owl, he's like, let me give you this monologue of everything that's happened and what you're about to do.
I had to... So you were talking about Zora's domain?
Yeah.
I went in there, and he's like, oh, you're going to have to use your bombs or whatever, to get up to Zora's domain, blah, blah, blah. And I forget what I did, but I ended up leaving by accident and then coming back, and I had to listen to all of that dialogue again. And I got
Really?
so mad. Yeah. The owl came
Damn.
back and said all the same stuff. I was so
I
mad.
don't remember that. That has never happened to me that the owl comes back twice.
You don't think you're supposed to leave once you go in there. It was just like a goof.
Yeah. I mean, and it does suck because you can fast forward a little bit, but it's so. And then I think they put the "Do you want me to repeat this?" yes button on top, not the no button first. So it's so easy to just try and skip through and accidentally hit the yes button again. You have to you get stuck in a loop. That happened to me a lot, even in this playthrough as a kid and everything. But I don't know what else. What else? Throw it. What else you got?
That's it, man. That sums up most of my negative feelings. I think this game doesn't hold up. I think it has one of the worst introductions to a game, period, that I've ever played. And it's so long. It's so long of an introduction. There's so much stuff that you have to do just to get to the meat and potatoes of this game that it makes me not want to play it. It made me I didn't hate it going into playing it to get ready for this. I hate it now.
Look, okay. Why this is one of my top 5 games still, even after this playthrough, of all time, is because this is the game that taught me how to love magic, how to navigate open world RPGs. But this isn't even an RPG. How to sort of how to craft and look for puzzles as I'm going from place to place. How to utilize different tools in different scenarios. How to fighting some of these bosses with some of the best experiences I've still had. I'm going to be doing a top battles video for this one because I have so much content on battles for this one, like a top 3 battles. And the biggest thing for me is there are some amazing moments going to the Forest Temple for the first time and having to go through these shadowy, twisted hallways, only to fight Ganondorf's spirit that comes through on a ghost horse through paintings. Badass. Going through the water temple and it had the best music and this sense of mystery. Even the way they played the music gave it this you're in the heart of the desert mystery kind of musical overtone that's just guiding you through. You're trying to figure out all these mysteries. Yeah, it's annoying taking the iron boots on and off, but it was a lot easier this time. It was a lot easier than I remember as a kid. And then at the end of all that, you get into what was the hardest battle for me in the entire game, Mirror Link. Mirror Link took me so long this time because it's just so cheap how you have to beat him sometimes. You either have to find your little combo of items you need to use against him and then just keep going, or B, but at the same time, it's this unique fight. It's you walk out of this placid lake where it's you fight literally a mirror of yourself. That's another great moment for me. Another amazing one is I remember riding down this river of shadows, which is only a quick spell, on this boat in the Shadow Temple, and these skeletons are dropping down. You're just fighting them on this boat, and then Navi's suddenly yo, brother, this boat's about to sink. Dip, and you have to jump off. And then Spirit Temple, dude. The Spirit Temple was, to me, I think why I love the mystery of the desert and games that take place in the desert. Because getting lost, following that ghost out to the Spirit Temple, having to go back and forth in time, having to unravel the mysteries in there, getting the mirror shield, the way they use light to break doors, to open portals, to open doors, and then fighting these spirit knights from place to place, which were these really fun battles of these giant beastly knights you're fighting. And at the end of it all, these 2 witches, that to me is such a crescendo of that game. And then after that, it's just endgame. I was yeah, cool. This did it for me.
Should have ended with Mirror Link killing you and just ending your suffering right there.
You maybe
a favor.
Maybe
the whole
you
world a favor with just Mirror Link killing you. It's that's it. Done.
Well, the problem is it wouldn't be doing the world a favor. It'd be doing a favor to the angry few that don't like it in the corners, because this is still a popular game amongst a lot of reviewers, game players from that era. It is more beloved than hated.
I know I'm not alone. I'm not going to name the 2 people within I'm not going to name the 2 people. I'm going to protect their identities so they don't get assaulted by you delusional freaking Zelda fans.
I don't assault. Look, to me, this is a cornerstone of my heart. It was a simple narrative that allowed a lot of freedom for imagination to pour through in A Knight's Tale.
Yeah. Sorry.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Exactly.
It's a cornerstone of crap, because that's what it is. It was, when it came out, and it doesn't hold up. It's just poop. But I'm glad you like it, Mike. I'm glad. I'm happy for you. I love you. I have nothing more to say about this steaming pile of dog poo.
Look, and that's okay. And that's okay. But needless to say, this is... If you can get through the user interface hiccups and the challenges of having to use a C button when there's no more C buttons, and the control dimensions and the gap you have to fill playing it on the Switch, it is worth the journey because it is a simple, beautiful story.
I have no desire to experience any more of it. Like, I would play this, and then I wouldn't want to play another... Like, I didn't play other video games, even though I was only playing this for like 30 to 45 minutes. I was just like so annoyed and frustrated. I was like, I don't want to touch a freaking controller right now.
See, and I was like, this is such a smooth, easy thing to get into that I could play for 2 to 4 hours, and was like, okay, I got through a lot there. And you can actually achieve a lot. Like, I can go through a 2 to 4 hour gaming session or a 1 to 2 hour, and I've not just dummied a dungeon, but I've also like already started and did half the intro to the next dungeon, Like, I've already done quite a bit in that time. So I didn't have that problem. For me, it was easy to step into. For me, playing it at the same time as Elden Ring, where fucking for the same amount of time, all I've done is slashed one guy's leg and maybe learned how he kills me faster. And like that was more frustrating to me. I love Elden Ring.
You know why you like this game? You know why you like it so much? You got a fish woman fetish. You just wanted to bang the fish princess when she was an adult.
I was actually always into Soraya more, or Sari as you call her.
Sure.
I was more into Saria always.
I know you, man. You see those fish lips and you get all hot and bothered.
But even as a kid, it's funny because it plays into that fantasy of here's 3 women you get to choose from in a video game yet again. You know what I mean?
It's classic Japanese harem stuff.
Yeah, I know.
The protagonist, just every woman's in love with the protagonist.
Yeah,
the most mid-looking guy. Maybe if they were as handsome as you, Mike, I would believe it. But
thank you so much. Well, and the thing a lot of people gripe about this one is like from my journeys, I guess the people who've commented on this to me is like everyone hated fighting Bongo, who's the Shadow Temple main badass. But like once you realize you just have to use the lens of truth and just kind of reveal him and shoot him in the eye and just slash him a bunch of times. It's actually, it's a pretty easy boss, but like for me, it was literally just
what you just said. Though you're like, as long as you figure out the boss's weak point, which is the same thing for every single boss, is figure out what the weak point is or what they're weak to. That's not different.
I only had to look up online to remind myself a couple things. I remembered quite a bit on this, but on this game, but. I don't know. I really enjoyed some of these boss fights. And I remember probably as a kid having that same sort of like laying the foundation for games that were like, you need to learn all the ins and outs of this boss to beat him. You know what I mean? Mm. There's some that are just annoying. You got to get the timing perfect. Like every time fighting Ganondorf and fighting Spirit Ganondorf, it's pretty much the same battle. But then like when you get to Ganon was a great boss. I enjoyed fighting Final Form Ganon. I enjoyed fighting even that first spider in the Deku tree. Like that was kind of like unique. I remember as a kid even finding that unique. That was terrifying. I enjoy the Spirit Temple, but not so much the witches. The witches are a little annoying. I enjoy Bongo. Like there's a couple. I enjoyed fighting the dragon. Like there's some cool ones. The Water Temple boss is kind of annoying, but like
the whole temple's annoying.
What are you gonna do?
Whatever.
I love the Water Temple.
My objective was never to like convince you that you should hate this game, Mike.
Although part of you was convinced, and you might convince me.
No, I don't think I can. You're very much once you've made up your mind on something, no one's gonna change it for you, no matter how convincing the argument is. You have to make your own up. You have to make up your own mind. That's how you are. But I never wanted to like tarnish this game for you or make you hate it. I think it's shit, and I'm never gonna not think it's shit. I'm super happy for you that you like shit. But, to each their own.
Where one man sees shit, another sees gold. Okay?
Well, sure. You can polish a turd, it's still a turd.
Hey, look, So we could slowly start wrapping this up because next week we get to see if
wrap this up.
yeah. But next week we get to try to see if Michael can actually hate a game because I don't actually hate any games. I don't really hate any games. There's games I avoid, and a lot of the games I do dislike, you dislike as well. But we're going to be trying Prey because I don't like the look of the game, and I would have never got it unless you had recommended it. I thought it was just a waste of my time. So we'll see how it goes.
I can't wait to rip your arguments to shreds.
I don't know if I have arguments.
If you come at me with you not liking it in the way that I think you're going to express your dislike for it, I'm going to come at you so hard, man.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to like it or not. I might like it. I have no idea. Truth be told, right now, I just...
Oh, sorry.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that was a bad one. There's a sneeze in there somewhere, too. I thought you said, like, the Mega Man style games were really not your cup of tea.
I don't go for them. But I don't hate them.
They don't bother you? Hey, buddy.
No, the only games that bother me are like the Contra games, the ones that are like you're just flying. Yeah, maybe that's what we should do one day. But what are we gonna do? Ripping on Contra?
Liked, Metal Slug though, which is like the same thing. Or
I never said I like Metal
else?
Slug. Yeah, I never said I like Metal Slug. Those games are pretty annoying. Those games I avoid actively.
There's none of those that I maybe like the one on Nintendo, but that I would want to sit here talking about for an hour and a half. You know?
Yeah, I know.
They're fun,
I know.
and they're fun with a buddy. But yeah, nothing that I want to spend 90 minutes talking about.
And next week's episode could turn into me being like, "Hey, this was a great game." Like, I don't know. I literally just wouldn't have approached it because there's nothing in the gameplay or the trailer or the anything that has appealed to me yet. But that doesn't mean when I turn it on, there won't be something about the UI or the mechanics that I do enjoy, and that keeps me going.
All right. I'll stop being defensive about it.
You don't even know if I'm going to hate it.
Well, the things you've said before of like, oh, it just looks like BioShock in space. It's so damn like that was how you were coming at it before. I know you have a preconceived notion.
It just reminds me of like a game where all I'm going to do is fight like a spirit version of the Flood.
No, 100% not.
Then we'll see what I say. We'll see what happens.
Okay, buddy. But
all right.
That's that. I love you.
That's that. Yeah, I love you too.
And until next time.
Until next time, this has been another episode of All Games Go to Heaven.
Bye.
Bye. A special thanks to Aaron Rastovic for the sweet beats.
Fantastic.
Great game.
That was a great game. One of the greats.
Great.